Everybody, 9/11 conspiracy theories. I was asked to do a video on this a long time ago, and I didn't do it because I think 9/11 conspiracy theories are just plain old stupid. And so I didn't do it, and it looks like I'm going to end up having to. People still believe in some of this stuff, and it just boggles my mind that people just haven't looked into anything. And if they have, they always seem to go looking into conspiracy sites, and they just parrot what has been said on these conspiracy sites. You never realize that half the time these people are not giving you the full information or showing you. They're not showing all the pictures. They're showing things from just certain angles that support their case and not the other side. It's like a illusionist on stage. Doing a magic trick. He's not showing you all of his tricks. He's just showing you part. Oh, look at this! I pulled a rabbit out of a hat. And it's just a lot of it is just completely silly. And there's a lot of things that we'll never know. But that doesn't lead me to conclude that there was some government conspiracy, out to kill, 3,000 Americans, and Brits, whoever else was in there, 3,000 people, by collapsing these towers. And just to start off, the conspiracy theories themselves are so incoherent, they're just laughable. I'm going to play a video clip here. And this is somebody who's just, tried to boil it down, simplify everything into just the simplest nuts and bolts. Watch this.
On the morning of September 11th, 2001, 19 men armed with box cutters, directed by a man on dialysis in a cave fortress halfway around the world using a satellite phone and a laptop, directed the most sophisticated penetration of the most heavily defended airspace in the world.
And that is exactly the reason why we were able to be hit as easily as we were. It could still happen again today. Once you've messed with guerrilla warfare, unconventional warfare, things like that, once you've implemented that kind of stuff, you get to see how easy it would be to screw with people. I could lay waste to my town before they even figured out what happened, if I was so compelled to do so. But this is the type of person that just goes around and completely underestimates their adversary. And it's laughable. Ask any soldier that's been blown up by a roadside IED, and they'll tell you, yeah, these people that live in these caves, they're dangerous. They can fuck us up. I don't care how good the Humvee is, strikers, things like that. They're getting blown up by, so-called people in caves, these ragheads that just are so stupid because they can't mess with us. We're Americans. Bullshit. We get killed just like anybody else. And our nation's defenses are designed still based on things like the Cold War. We're looking for ICBMs come flying in. We're not on the lookout for people hijacking our own planes and trying to chase them down with fighter aircraft. Look at golfer Payne Stewart. He was one of my favorite golfers. I was sad to see him when he died. But his plane lost pressure and it was just on autopilot. And it was going to crash once it ran out of fuel. It took him like 70 minutes to catch up to that plane. And you got the planes involved in 9/11 were only in the air, 40 minutes or something like that? And it's not surprising that they weren't able to catch them. So people, complaining that, well, how come the government didn't shoot them down? It takes a while to catch that kind of stuff. It's not that we were tracking planes crossing the ocean. You're looking at, blips in, this soup. And it's not quite as cut and dried as people like to think it is. Which leads to another, conspiracy. Like I said, it's incoherent. You got people bitching that the government didn't shoot down the planes that hit the World Trade Center. Then the ones that think the government shot down the, Flight 90, the one that crashed in Pennsylvania. They think the government shot that one down. They're pissed off. So they're pissed off the government didn't shoot these down. They're pissed off that the government did shoot this one down. You can't make these people happy. So it wouldn't matter how the scenario worked out. These people are going to be pissed off, and they're going to believe conspiracy theories no matter what. So, you've got both scenarios, and they believe both of them, and they're pissed off about both of them. And this is the type of people we're dealing with. And you take books and things like that David Griffin guy or whoever, wanting to know why the government or the Pentagon didn't shoot down the plane that hit it because, it's got these, missile defense systems all around it and everything. Really? Nobody's ever been able to confirm any missile defenses around the Pentagon. There's an airport right next door. Planes fly over it all the time. Not a big surprise. And where does he get his information that there is missiles around the Pentagon? He got it out of a book from, he listed in his the credits in his book where what his sources are. His source in that book is another book written by a German conspiracy theorist. What's that guy's source? It's hearsay from a French officer that said that there was missiles at the Pentagon. That's the entire source of the frickin' story. It's just, and this is the caliber of arguments that we get, once you boil them all down. And I won't be able to touch everything in this video. I would have to do an ongoing series that would just never end because there's so many different conspiracy theories and misconceptions about things. So there's no way I could touch them all in one video. But we'll go over a few of them. One is that steel doesn't melt at such and such temperatures, and jet fuel only burns at such and such temperatures. And there's no way that jet fuel fires cause the steel to melt and collapse and things like that. Nobody's saying that it melted. Steel doesn't have to melt to collapse. I've got a big knife collection. I love pocket knives. And I can just grab a couple here and hold them up. Here's one. Here's another one. There we go. Both of these knives are made out of stainless steel, but two completely different stainless steels. The composition is different. The heat treatment is different. How hot they got them when they heat treated them is different. The time it took to heat them up is different. The time it took to cool them down is different. And that makes these two knives perform completely different from each other. And you can't just say, one steel is equal to all steels, because they're not. There's so much more to it than saying steel. There's all kinds of things to it. And one of the other things is just a little bit of physics here. Metals, dissipate heat, and they have to in order to retain their structural rigidity. This is a piece of copper, just a copper tube. It's got a lot of surface and some mass to it. This is another piece of copper. This is a piece of copper wire. Now let's run a quick experiment real fast. What's the burning temperature of a match? Nowhere near jet fuel or melting temperature of a piece of steel or any kind of metal or even copper. So if I heat up this piece of copper with this match, what's going to happen? Not a damn thing. I can sit here and hold this match on here until the cows come home, and it's not going to flinch. Nothing's going to happen to this thing. But if I take that piece of copper wire that does not dissipate heat nearly as well, hope this comes out on video, and hold it and subject it to the same flame, you can see that it can't even support its own weight. It didn't reach anywhere near melting temperature, and that's not what's required to make metals fatigue and stress, in a fire. And if you look at the World Trade Centers, it wasn't that the building was constructed out of this web of, big, thick, massive I-beams. No, it had, an inner column, outer perimeter of beams, and those were connected with trusses. And trusses are much smaller, just like I just demonstrated with this. This might be an I-beam, that wire might be, what's making up the truss. So a different amount of heat is going to be needed to damage each one of those. And so you can see how the floors start bowing, start, pulling things in. If you're not familiar with trusses and what they are, I'm going to add a little bit of video right here showing the difference between a web construction with I-beams and trusses spanning a long distance. So I'll be right back. Hey everybody, I am in a steel building and I'm going to talk about the structure just a little bit, and sorry about the noise. Hopefully I can speak up loud enough and it's not that big of a deal. What we're looking at is things like these steel I-beams here, support columns. See if I can back up as far as I can and see out there. You can see all the steel I-beams and girders going across and this way. This is a pretty solid structure right here. This is similar to what you'd find in a web-style constructed steel building. You have support columns, large I-beams going both ways. This is pretty strong. It's going to support a lot of weight. The problem comes in, this is really heavy. And so making skyscrapers like this isn't always feasible. So they try to go with lighter designs. This is going to withstand quite a bit of heat from fire. You can see the size of these I-beams here. I mean, they're pretty big. And so this is going to dissipate a lot of heat, and it's going to withstand quite a bit. But this is not how the World Trade Center towers were constructed, and let's go take a look at that. All right, now I'm in another section of the steel building, and we're going to turn around and look, and hopefully get the gist of this. This section runs quite a ways that way, and you can see the floor space between the pillars here and the wall here is almost double what it was in that other section. What they're using is what's called a truss. That is a truss. Instead of I-beams and things like that going across, this is much lighter weight and can span a longer distance without having to support that weight. If they ran I-beams through here, you'd have support poles coming down through the middle, and that would take up floor space. So this becomes ideal when they're trying to lease out floor space, when designers are designing a building to lease out, things like that, and they want to maximize their investment. The more floor space they have available to lease, as opposed to floor space being taken up by pillars and things like that, it becomes more desirable. The problem comes in when we have things like fire. Those trusses will not absorb as much heat or dissipate as much heat as I-beams. It's not going to happen. And that's just plain old physics. Then you pour concrete on top of that for the net floor above it, and that's pretty hefty. So when you got something, you got 30 floors of this coming down on top of it, this thing, it's going to go through this thing like butter. And so when they talk about the World Trade Centers collapsing at near free fall speed, that's not a surprise at all. If you don't know the mechanics of the collapse, what happens here is these trusses start to bow. Once they're heated up and the weight starts causing them to sag, we get a bow here in the middle, and these trusses are no longer straight. That makes the distance between the anchor points there and the anchor point there shorter. Okay, so this thing is being pulled in, pressure on both sides, and something's got to give. Just like the police said, something somewhere has to break, and sooner or later bolts are going to come undone, and this is going to collapse. Steel truss designed buildings collapsing in fire is not a surprise at all, and especially one that's already been damaged by a 767 crashing into it. So let's walk over here and look at some of these support columns. Alright, here we have a support column with an I-beam sitting on it. Over there we have a support column with I-beam sitting on it. Right there, the I-beams are bolted together. The trusses are sitting on top of those and just bolted down. The little plates up there. That's all that's holding that together. So we crash a 767 through here, take out that pole, take out that pole. Now that pole down there and the wall over here, this corner where this door is supporting that entire length. So now you got the bowing here, and now you're going to start getting bowing here, and those bolts up there are going to start coming loose. And I think there's another section of bolts between here and there, because them I-beams are only so long. So if we took out this column here, was one of the ones we said was taken out, now we've got two sections of bolts right there and there. So once you add damage to the structure and set it on fire, it's really no surprise that the World Trade Center buildings came down at all, and at near free fall speed, because this is what's trying to stop everything. So the last few floors were kind of like that web design we saw earlier, but by the time you've got 100 of these coming down and just tearing everything up on the way down, nothing's going to stop it. The weight is just too much. This isn't going to stop it. Isn't even going to flinch. It's going to come right through this thing. So hopefully that gives everybody a quick down and dirty kind of idea in your head what we're talking about when we say, web design steel building versus a truss design steel building. There's a big difference in the design, and that's just how the World Trade Centers were designed and built. So we got a damaged building on fire. Not a whole lot of surprise here. The trusses, if you ask a fireman, they have a saying that says, never trust a truss. And there's a reason for that. So we know what caused the building to start the collapse. But what caused it to come all the way down like that? It's just another simple matter of physics. If you notice on one of the videos, you can see the tower start to lean to one side where like the top's going to fall over. People are like, why didn't it just fall all the way off? Well, when it leans, the load's no longer distributed evenly. Now it's all on one side. So right there, it's already weakened and damaged and causing that lean, and now it's supporting even more weight, and so it goes. And now we no longer have a dynamic load that the building was designed to hold. Now we no longer have a static load, put it that way. Now we have what's called a dynamic load. Now all that weight is in motion, and something's got to stop it. And the only thing in its way is all them trusses all the way down. And so as the floors come down, it peels off starts kicking the sides out because the mass inside becomes greater than what that area is, can hold. And so it starts ejecting stuff out because it can only go down so fast. It's not going to fall faster than this, gravity or free fall speed. And so it's just, if you don't understand dynamic versus static loads, there's a quick experiment you can try, if you want to do this. Just lay on your back on the floor and balance a bowling ball on your head. You can support the weight of a bowling ball with your head. Now have somebody get up on a ladder and hold that same bowling ball and drop it on your head from about 10 feet and see if your head will support that load. Static versus dynamic, it's going to go right through it. The same people that think that there's no difference, will have you believe that a bullet hitting somebody in the chest won't penetrate the skin because, it'll just slide off. It should just slide off to the side. There's no way it should, go through. And so they don't understand, they want to say things like, that's not the path of least resistance. Well, that's the direction gravity's going. When you have that much weight, that is the path of least resistance because them truss floors are not going to support that weight. It's not going to happen. Oh, what other ones are there? Oh, the frickin' box cutter thing. People can't believe somebody can hijack a plane with a box cutter. Hell, I could hijack a plane with a frickin' pen. All I got to do is jump up, grab a stewardess, and jam this in her fucking throat and kill her. And then grab somebody else and say, you want me to do it to this person too? Sit down. By the way, I've got a bomb. Which they did. They said they had bombs and everything. And if you don't think that a box cutter will hurt you, just go ahead and pick one up and start jamming it in your temple. And let me know how that works out for you. Just because it's small, doesn't mean it's not going to cause a lot of damage. Now, I got all kinds of small knives that I can cut people up with. Just because it's little, and I see people like Dylan Avery, that ass clown from Loose Change, talk about how he just laugh in their face. Yeah, okay, internet tough guy. That's the kind of, and this is the kind of people that are running this, truth movement. They have no fucking clue as to what they're talking about, and they're so disconnected from reality that it's just absolutely pathetic.
If I was on a flight with, at least 50 other people, because that's the smallest number I think that was on 9/11, if I was in a cabin with 50 other people, and 5 people, I don't care if they're Muslim or not, stand up with box cutters and say they're going to hijack the plane, I'm going to laugh in their face.
And people think that a plane didn't hit the Pentagon. Really. They done used 2 frickin' planes and crashed another one. Why would they waste a frickin' missile? And where did this missile get shot from? I mean, that's an inventoriable item. And none are missing. Even though there's, like if you watch Loose Change, they always want to show the pictures that show like no wreckage at all. Look, there's no wreckage out here. And they completely ignore all the other photos that show the wreckage. Even photos from before the collapse of the Pentagon. That shows damage from the wings and where the engines hit and stuff like that. They don't show you that. They show you the pictures that don't show it and say, look, no plane must have hit the Pentagon. But they don't show the actual, all the photos from all the angles. So every time I see these conspiracy sites and movies and things that are trying to pull little shifty tricks, I know right away, okay, this person's full of crap, because they're not, they're not disclosing all the information. They're only, showing you, like the magician, just what they want you to see. Now here's a shot of the North Tower collapsing. You see that reddish-brown building right in front of it there that all the stuff is landing on? That's World Trade Center 7. So I don't know why people keep bothering to post that, World Trade Center 7 was not hit by planes or any debris or anything, and it just collapsed. But look at all that crap landing on it. It did all kinds of damage. We can see it in videos and pictures and stuff, because we only get to see the north side usually. That's the only side that the conspiracy sites want to show you, is that it was just in perfect condition and it just fell down on its own. But they don't tell you that the water mains were severed during the collapse of the towers, and the firemen didn't have any water to put the building out with, and they knew it was coming down. It had heavy damage on the backside, and it was no surprise. They monitored it all day, and on the news while I was watching it, it was just repeated over and over. Hey, 7's probably going to come down. It's collapsed. It received a lot of damage. Even World Trade Center 3, they thought it was going to come down. It ended up not coming down. But just because 7 did, they seem to think somehow it was a controlled demolition. And even the videos that they show, they only show from the collapse of the penthouse that lends credence to their side of the story. They don't show the entire collapse and time the entire thing. Because once you see the one of the back corners go out and the other penthouse go, and then start timing it, it's nowhere near the supposed free fall speed. This thing just came down like a controlled demolition. It didn't. It did not come down like a controlled demolition. Part of the building fell first, and then a couple seconds later, the other part of the building fell. No surprise.
I spoke to one firefighter who did a couple tours in Vietnam. As he was walking out of the smoke and the debris that you see behind me, he said this is the most horrific sight he had ever seen. There are still several fires burning, the most serious of which is right up there. And I'll ask Ralph to pan up. That is 7 World Trade right there, which is still fully involved in flames. You can see the thick smoke still pouring out of the southern side of that building. What the firefighters tell us is that when tower number 1 collapsed, that was the second collapse, it did severe damage to that building right there, which is 7 World Trade. The fire is burning and has been for hours, and no firefighters are being allowed in there, mainly because they fear that building could collapse at any time. So once again, that fire burns on, and it's making the job difficult for many of these emergency workers who have been standing around waiting to get in there and do their jobs. But the fact is that southern Manhattan is just not secure at this point, and we're keeping our eye on 7 World Trade, which is leaning to the south. You can see that, and they say that it can collapse just about any time.
So it all ends up being just a big, mess of just crap, just, poured into this pot and just stirred up, and none of it makes any sense. I mean, even the thought of the conspiracy theory. I mean, what is the conspiracy theory anyway? That the government wanted to do this new Pearl Harbor, which that's out of context too, event to, solidify the nation so we go attack Iraq. Well, then why did they say the hijackers were from Saudi Arabia and Egypt? We didn't touch Saudi Arabia and Egypt. Why didn't they say they were from Iraq? If that was their goal, was to go attack them. You have to use Occam's razor on some of this stuff. Because if you have to wonder what made them think to use planes. The World Trade Center had already been bombed once by a truck bomb. They already supposedly had the buildings rigged for explosives, so why not just have the terrorists go in the building and claim they have a bomb and blow it up? No, they got to make it more complex by using planes and make sure you crash that stuff on the floors with the explosives, even though it's different in each building. It just doesn't make any sense. And look at the number of people that would have to be involved. At last count, it was somewhere near 500,000 people would have to be involved in this cover-up. If you count every agency involved and all the companies that would be covering this up and the media, everything, it'd be like 500,000 people. How much does the government pay all these people to keep their mouths shut? I mean, how much is that worth? $10, $20 million? I mean, that adds up, multiply that by 500,000, you're well up in the trillions of dollars. That is just, the government would have to pay out, to keep from paying for asbestos renovation in the World Trade Center. It's just doesn't make any sense at all. And the government, behind this is like this omnipotent, moronic institution. They're all powerful. They can do anything. They can have top secret, prototype explosives that demolition teams today still don't use. We haven't seen any buildings brought down with thermite or anything like that because the government's got, access to super top secret stuff. They can make anything they want. They got Q Branch, outfitting James Bond and shit. And they've got the media on their side. The media is going to lie and cover for the government. Given. Except we go to war with Iraq, and they can't even produce a little bit of mustard gas to keep themselves from looking like idiots when they don't find weapons of mass destruction. They can't even have the media lie about it. All right, so here we have the government that can control the media and lie about this, the killing of 3,000 innocent people, and they can't get them to lie about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. And they just get busted out because, we go over there and everybody's looking for it and nobody finds anything and they're like, sorry. We could do that 9/11 shit, but we couldn't put no mustard gas over here, and so the conspiracy theory is, incoherent at all. It doesn't make sense whatsoever. It's to the point where when people tell me they think the government did 9/11, I have to laugh. I can't help it. It's too freaking funny. So, that's just a few of the theories in here. Oh, wait, I got to talk about architects and engineers for 9/11. My construction experience is, 5 years or so working construction, so I don't consider myself an architect. I do understand how buildings go together. I've built quite a few of them, here in my town. I drive by them all the time, and they're still standing. But when you have somebody that's supposed to be a professional architect, and he's talking about how there must have been explosives on every floor, and he don't understand how trusses work, and things like that, you have to question his expertise. What is the American Institute of Architects? Why are they disowning the guy? What's his credentials? What towers has he built? Has he built anything bigger than an IHOP? Where's his career at? He's apparently making a living just doing this 9/11 truth thing and not building buildings. And then when I see him do stupid, crap like this.
Now, we're going to talk about how these buildings came down. I have with me 110, I have a 95-story building. I have two 15-story buildings that I'm going to drop. I'm holding them up. I'm going to drop them at the same time. This is going to show that we have what amounts as a virtual free fall speed, unimpeded, as I'm dropping the 15-story building over nothing at all on one side and over a 95-story building on the other. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Oh my God, the one that had no resistance under it falls at free fall speed. What happens over here? The one that has 80,000 tons of structural steel on it. It doesn't even give. It resists and is met by an equal and opposite reaction known as the conservation of momentum. It doesn't fall.
So this guy's a professional architect, and he's going to stand up in front of people on video and do that. That makes almost as much sense as me coming up with my own conspiracy based on this. All right, here we have a chunk of ice and a metal sledgehammer. Oh my God, look at that. The metal sledgehammer is unharmed. Steel is stronger than ice. Therefore, we know that no ship has ever been brought down by an iceberg, and the Titanic was an inside job. Which ends up bringing me to my next question. If these people, like architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth, pilots for 9/11 Truth, veterinarians for 9/11 Truth, mountain bikers for 9/11 Truth, all these different people, if their evidence was so good, why are they not defending Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, who is being tried right now at the time of this video for masterminding 9/11 and murdering almost 3,000 people? Why aren't they presenting their evidence to get him off the hook? I don't see, this big rally and push, to get him freed. Where's that at? Are they waiting for him to be executed so they can claim he was a patsy after the fact? When put on the spot, they don't seem to answer, want to answer the actual tough questions. All they want to do is try to poke holes in the so-called official story, which I haven't never heard one official story. It's kind of like the evolution debate. They want to try to find some hole in evolution so they can say, aha, therefore creationism must be, the only other option out there. So if they can find anything wrong, well, NIST said this bolt broke, and I don't think it did. It must have been this other bolt. Therefore, it's controlled demolition. Sorry, not going to happen. Like I said, I'd have to make video after video after video, because I can't touch on every single aspect of these conspiracy theories in one video. I couldn't do it. It'd be impossible. This video would be 10 hours long. It's ridiculous. So I doubt if I'd do another video on 9/11. It's so lame that it really does piss me off to a point, because I know if I had family members that were killed, in this thing, and some ass clown, was, seeking attention based on that and just spreading nonsense, I'd be offended. I really would. And I'd be out in at the World Trade Center complex, when they meet on their Saturdays or whatever, and the 5 people stand out there going, 9/11's inside, I'd be out there just punching people. And I don't have any pity for them. I really don't. So that's about all I got to say on it for now. Take care, everybody.